This is Jeremy Zwinger from the Rice Trader, just giving your weekly Rice Trader update for the February 18th TRT report. I just got off a plane and arrived in Dubai after a 16-hour direct flight, so hopefully I can keep direct and short with this quick weekly update. It is a bit slow just to start. We still are feeling the effects of the Chinese New Year. But I think with the Gulf food starting, which is of course where I'm at in Dubai, you'll see increased activity this week and definitely increased interest. With that, I'm going to actually share my screen and kind of try to do a little bit of a different TRT summary this week, as you guys can see what I'm looking at. And I can show you some of the key things I see just when I look at the report and as we put it together for you. So you should be seeing my screen as well. So this is what I'm looking at for the week. I'm going to actually show you the U.S. futures a little bit and a few key things. But obviously, we're doing a summary of the Rice Trader. It's always good to go to the Rice Trader, and I like to pull certain pieces out when I look at this, just as to give a quick summary. And so I've highlighted some of the key things. I'm just going to read them off. I've already said that the market is slow, of course, with Chinese New Year, and yet it will increase as we move into the coming week and many meetings of Gulf food. And just on that note, we are throwing a seminar that many of you know about, or if you're in Gulf food, come to the seminar this week. It's on the 20th. It's at the Sheraton Dubai Mall of Emirates. That's actually where I'm staying as well if any of our clients like to meet with Subra and I. Subra's going to get on the 17th. So we'd love to see you, and definitely the larger report. It's a longer meeting than originally thought because there was a lot of interest. So we're going to start at 10 and go till about 4 o'clock. 3 o'clock, and then just have a good time, nice networking reception with our clients here. So I know many of the people from the rice industry are in the area, and just kind of look at this as a reunion with our overall rice industry globally. So we'd love to see you here again on the 20th or before. But anyway, let's get back to sharing the Rice Trader. There's also a Japanese tender, which we show very well in the TRT below, but overall rather slow. The big piece of the week, and probably what I should have started with, is that the Rice Tariffication Act did get signed in the Philippines, and this was after quite a bit of back and forth that seemed to be unexpected by the Philippine government. That being said, this is the reason why there's so much focus in the Philippines today. A lot of people who are looking to import rice into the Philippines are very happy. At the very least, it's going to decrease grain trade, likely, in that it'll start to legitimize the imports that are already happening and set up a system of watching them closer. I do look at it as positive for the global rice trade, but it could add a lot of instability as we move through the coming period and elections in the Philippines. If you're a grower, if you're a miller, they were both opposed to this because, if you look at the prices, you're almost double the price of international landed rice. And so very big question of how does the Philippine players remain competitive as this rice comes in, even with the tariff on the rice coming in. On a similar note, Thailand is looking at a Rice Act as well. And it's a similar story of elections soon coming up, how the actions in rice and the overall politics going to affect the future. Definitely key thing to watch there as well. And we do see some instability that you have to watch in Thailand that does concern us. I think it'll be fine, but it's definitely a concern that you have to watch. That being said, really, Vietnam is really running the show here right now as far as prices. At a $330 a ton, they're getting large amounts of demand, as they should. And it goes back to the story we keep saying over the last several weeks. You have such a huge amount of global supply that it's difficult to keep prices remaining high. And it's on everything. It's on soybeans, massively increasing stock. It's on rice, massively increasing stocks. And with new crops coming, the Viets are just kind of clearly making the quick action and got ahead of the market. As you can see down here, we call high-end Viet prices 5% at $335. Probably buy even slightly cheaper than that today. But it's a big spread to like the Thais. They're down to $393. That keeps them very far out of the market, where Pakistan has definitely fallen to compete with Vietnam, and India is not really competitive as well compared to Vietnam. good quality, low price, very difficult to beat. And we watch these things very closely as you look through the year and the 5-year changes I'm showing here. These are key to watch, but it's just a symptom of the overall too much supply mentality getting in these markets and new crops hitting us. And you're going to get to a place where people holding rice, it's going to really be a net loss. I mean, you're going to be burning up revenues, and this is going to be difficult as sales are complicated. Outside of that, it's a lot more of the same. There is obviously activity going on in the higher ends where there's japonica here and a whole molly. Definitely business is happening. Demand's going to continue to increase each year just with population. So, it's not a horrible market, and these things happen in time. And that more, I'm going to just move to a little bit of some of the things I look at. I look at the futures market very closely, especially the U.S. rough rice futures. There's not a great amount of volume. When you get into here and you start looking at open interest, you look at the volume, and some of these contracts have zero contracts. But what we are seeing, and what we've predicted, is prices have dropped to follow the international community. They have not followed completely. And so even this is $9.95 below $10 a hundredweight they've been calling. It's definitely the trend. The U.S. is struggling dramatically and praying and hoping that somehow politically they can make Iraq happen again. But, if you look at the trend analysis shows a big hole here about 950. It's probably a good bet right now for somebody wanting to play the futures market. It needs to probably head down towards these numbers, even test these levels seen in 2016 and 17 on the long-term chart. It's definitely the fundamentals are saying it should break through those levels. And also, as we've mentioned prior, you got to look at this in a mechanism of thinking. There's a new farm bill that's going to push high-yielding, low-quality varieties out. The supplies are likely going to increase next year. The U.S. is hoping on some political aid solution or forcing Iraq to take rice they really don't want because it's not the quality that they used to get. So it's a hope and a prayer. And I think the U.S. industry is going to really struggle, like a lot of industries. I mean, let's be fair. We go back to prices here. When you have Viet rice at $3.35, it perhaps even going lower, as we predicted at the World Conference. How can Thai compete? I mean, you can compete to a point on your normal customers, but then you get back down to one of my favorite charts, which is the weekly movement charts. And you're seeing that the overall trade is off about 13% in the year. And, Vietnam is significantly off already in early shipments, but I would expect sales to have moved from this rather significantly. And this is very early data. So I would bet you that the Viets have gotten a ton of business that'll show up later in the data, which is pretty clear. And, the Thais are starting out the year a little slow for sure, as is India. There's concerns of where the demand is going to come from. And, this is kind of a function that comes after these prices. You can see first the prices and then what happens to demand as you watch it each week. And that's what we try to do. We try to watch things each week. Since we're not in the trade and we have no politics of prices go up or down, it gives us a kind of an unbiased view. I'm also asked, hey, Jeremy, do you play the futures? Does the race chart ever allow our staff? I've never traded the futures, so it leaves me to be independent on thought of what I think. Sometimes it's very tempting when I have 90 to 95% confidence that this is going to happen. But it would bias my views about writing about the market and talking about what's going to happen. So we've never done it. So anyway, just back to the top, just to lay out the last piece of the U.S. That's definitely a farm bill action. There's a lot going on there. There's obviously more in the rice trader to look at if you want to go through all the pieces, which you should. The U.S. industry is interesting, as is the overall global trade. This week we do have special sections on the broken markets and Turkey. And also it is the weekly update or monthly update for India, which is key. And I would just say this is a final point before I kind of quickly look at the brokers report that is very detailed on this market. The Rice Trader is a different publication. Our conferences are different. We're very independent. We want to help the whole world rice industry come together. But we also are very data-based. And there's a lot of these groups that want to flash an article and flash an idea or graph up even, but they don't understand the fundamentals really behind what's happening. And unless you get into the data, and this age has lost the ability in some ways to really look at data versus the social media chats of the day, which are also important, but only a piece of the equation. the rice trader is very data based. And in fact, just as I look at the Brokens report, you can go through this, and there's so much data that it's almost overwhelming when you're looking at what's happening in the Brokens market as they start to level off. If you look at who's exporting, almost too much data is the rice trader. We are so centric on our databases and understanding the markets that we have to pull ourselves back from the data to really then write down and talk about what's happening. So, but for me, and I just decided to highlight it all, if I'm going to look at the report, I have limited time, I'm a CEO, I'm busy, I'm going to golf, I'm on a plane, I suggest that everybody reads the top of the rice trader in these type of sections. So I just highlighted the whole thing. This gives you an understanding very quickly before going into the data and the exact 70 to 80 page rice trader of what's going on in each market. And so I know a lot of CEOs and a lot of players, they'll come in the rice trader and they'll read these key areas. And that's what I would suggest at the very least. And you can see it in the Brokens report. Very active trade, leveled off this year. There is shifting by crops that you just kind of see with new players rising as they have Brokens and as the market conditions shift. So, especially with the weakened prices in Asia, it's tough for a lot of markets to compete. As I've said, you look at this Uruguay, U.S., Argentina at 500 and the Viet market at $150 a ton less. Obviously, Brokens are going to follow that same level. So that's kind of the summary take home from a lot of that, but it shifts year to year. Anyway, that's been a lot of information for me to quickly just give you. I should be back on the screen, it looks like. And I just wanted to let you know, we'll be here again in Go Food. We're looking forward to talking to you. And I think that's a pretty good summary of the rice trader this week. With that, I'm going to sign off, and I wish you guys a good week and hope to see you.